I don't remember the last time I felt my hands go cold this fast. My phone buzzed 3 times in a row, the kind of buzz that usually means nothing more than a meme or a dumb argument in the group chat. But tonight, the screen lit up with a notification that knocked the air out of me. Bro, is it true Lila collapsed at Adrian's place? Wait, Adrian as in her ex Adrian? I thought she wasn't talking to him anymore. The words blurred for a second, as if the glow from the screen burned holes straight through my vision. My wife, my pregnant wife, collapsed. At his place. I scrolled back up, desperate for some explanation, but the chat only spiraled into chaos, emojis, half-formed questions, a screenshot of someone's Instagram story showing Adrian's arm around her as she leaned against him, her face pale, eyes half-closed before she crumpled. My stomach turned inside out. It wasn't just that she'd fainted. It was where? With whom? I had to read it again just to believe it. Lila, the same girl who once promised me under a sky full of stars that she wanted nothing more than to build a life with me, she had gone to him. Without a word. Without me. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. I pressed it hard against my thigh just to feel something solid, something real, because inside my chest, everything was breaking apart. I typed once. Deleted. Typed again. Where is she now? Someone replied, they took her to Mercy General. ICU. Mercy General. Not far. I grabbed my keys without even locking the door. The drive blurred. Streetlights streaked across the windshield like smears of fire. Every red light felt like a punishment. I tried not to imagine it, her collapsing in his arms, him calling the ambulance, him being the first to hold her when it should have been me. I thought of the baby, of her belly pressed warm against my side just last week when she whispered she was scared but excited. She said she trusted me, that we were in this together. That we were chasing the dream of a home full of light, laughter, and little footsteps, something we used to sketch out in notebooks back in high school when everyone else was dreaming about concerts or parties. That dream was ours. Or at least, I thought it was. The smell of antiseptic hit me as I stormed into the hospital lobby. The receptionist's lips moved, but I barely heard her directions. ICU, 3rd floor, end of the hall. My legs carried me faster than my mind could process. When I finally pushed through the heavy door, the sight stopped me cold. Lila lay on the bed, skin waxy, hair damp against her temples, machines humming like a cruel lullaby. She looked small. Too small. I reached for her hand, but it was ice cold, limp in mine. My throat closed, words choking before they could form. I wanted to scream at her for going to him. I wanted to beg her to wake up. Instead, I just stood there, tethered to her by the weakest grip in the world. Behind me, the door creaked. A shadow lingered in the doorway. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Adrian. His voice was low, almost gentle. She called me first. The words sliced through me like a knife. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes stayed locked on her pale face, my thumb brushing circles against her knuckles, as if touch alone could rewrite everything. But in that sterile hospital room, surrounded by the mechanical rhythm of machines keeping her alive, I realized something had already shattered. The dream we built together wasn't ours anymore. And maybe, it never was. The hospital air never changes. It's always too cold, too sharp, like it was built to remind you this isn't home. I sat in the stiff chair by her bed, my spine aching, my eyes raw from hours without sleep. The machines pulsed their cruel lullaby. Adrian's words kept echoing in my skull. She called me first. What does that make me? The backup plan? The safe choice? I closed my eyes, and for a moment, the years peeled back. I could still see her, 12 years old, sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor, her hair tangled, her hands busy sketching a crooked house on the back of my math homework. That's us one day, she said, pointing at the lopsided square she called a house. You, me, and a bunch of kids who'll eat too much cereal. I laughed then, tossed a pillow at her head, but I kept that paper. It's still in a box somewhere, yellowing with time. We were dreamers back then, the kind of kids who thought stars could be owned if you just wished hard enough. Nights spent on the roof, whispering plans into the dark, how we'd grow up together, never lose each other, build a home that felt nothing like the broken ones we came from. I thought those promises meant something unshakable. But the truth is, my dream started before her. I remember my mother's voice, soft and worn, telling me that family was the only thing worth leaving behind in this world. She used to sit by the window, humming lullabies to nobody, her eyes already far away. When she passed, I swore to myself I'd carry her dream for her. I wanted to build a family so solid that no one would ever feel the loneliness she did. That was mine. My fire. My reason. Lila just stepped into it, like she was always meant to. But now, staring at her pale face under the hospital lights, I wasn't so sure. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I laid my hand against her belly. The smallest kick nudged back, faint but alive. My throat burned. "Hey, little one," I whispered, my voice cracking. "It's just us now. I don't know if your mom, if she's coming back. But I promise you, I'll be here. No matter what." The machines answered with their steady rhythm. I leaned back in the chair, closing my eyes, haunted by a simple truth: maybe Lila was never mine to keep. But this child was. And that had to be enough. The hospital cafeteria smells like burnt coffee and disinfectant. I sat there with a paper cup in my hands, fingers wrapped too tight around the rim, watching the surface ripple every time my chest shook. I hadn't slept, not really. Just drifted in and out of half-dreams full of machines beeping and Lila's face turning away from me. When I lifted my eyes, he was there. Adrian. He leaned casually against the counter, sleeves rolled up, talking low to one of the nurses like he belonged here. Like he was the one keeping vigil. My gut twisted. I'd avoided him since that night, clinging to silence, to Lila's bedside, pretending he didn't exist. But he was everywhere. In the hallways. In the waiting room. Hovering like a shadow I couldn't escape. I stood before I could stop myself, the chair legs scraping hard against the floor. His head turned, eyes locking with mine. Those eyes, too calm, too smug, like he was already rehearsing the lines of victory. "Ethan," he said, nodding slightly, voice dipped in that false civility. "How's she doing?" I clenched my jaw. "You'd know, wouldn't you? She called you first." His lips twitched, not quite a smile. "She trusted me. That's all." "Trusted you?" I barked out a laugh that scraped against my throat. "She's my wife. My child is in her. And you," my voice cracked. I lowered it, every syllable sharp enough to cut. "You don't get to act like you belong here." He tilted his head, studying me. "Maybe I do. Maybe you just don't want to admit it." The words hit like a sucker punch. Around us, people shuffled, trays clattered, the world moved on as if it didn't matter that my marriage, my dream, was crumbling right there between us. I took a step closer, close enough to smell the cologne he wore, sharp and clean, the kind she used to love. "Stay away from her. From us. Whatever you had, it's over." But his grin said otherwise. "You can't erase history, Ethan. And you can't control who she calls out for when she's scared." Something in me snapped then, a soundless crack deep inside my ribs. I didn't swing. I didn't shout. I just turned and walked out, my hands trembling so violently the coffee splashed down my wrist. Because the truth was heavier than my anger. I was losing her. Maybe I already had. And the only way I'd survive was by learning to stand without her. Friday night, the group tried to pull me out of the hospital. "You need air, Ethan," David insisted. "You're going to collapse before she even wakes." So I went. Not because I wanted to, but because staring at the white walls of the ICU was starting to hollow me out from the inside. We met at a friend's apartment, the kind of gathering that used to feel easy, pizza boxes stacked on the counter, music low in the background, everyone talking over each other. For a moment, I almost let myself sink into it. Pretend I wasn't orbiting the ruins of my marriage. Then the door opened. Adrian walked in like he belonged. A few claps on the back, a grin tossed across the room. My chest tightened, heat crawling up my throat. David shot me a look, warning me to keep steady, but I was already unraveling. He poured himself a drink, settled on the couch, and within minutes the conversation tilted his way. "Adrian's been at the hospital every day," someone said. "Crazy how much he cares." Cares. The word cut like glass. I stayed quiet, fingers digging crescents into my knees, until David leaned forward and changed the subject. It didn't matter. The air was poisoned, the laughter brittle, every sound echoing around the one fact I couldn't swallow: he was winning them over. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife deeper, my phone lit up. A group chat notification. "Adrian has added Lila back into the family and friends group." My thumb hovered. The room buzzed around me, but all I could hear was the roar in my ears. Added her back. Like he had the right. Like he could speak for her when she couldn't. I didn't think so. I just acted. "Ethan has removed Lila from the group." Ethan has blocked Adrian. The room went dead silent. Heads turned. Adrian's smile faltered, but only for a second before it curved into something sharper. Really, Ethan? His voice was smooth, mocking. That's how you handle it? By cutting her off from the people who care about her. My hands shook, but I forced my voice steady. You're not people who care. You're the reason she's in that bed. The silence after was heavy, suffocating. Nobody defended me. Not one. I stood, the chair scraping back, and walked out. The night air hit my face like ice, but it wasn't enough to cool the fire in my chest. For the first time, the fracture lines in our circle of friends were visible. And I knew they would only widen. Because this wasn't just about Lila anymore. It was about who would stand with me when everything finally broke apart. The hospital lobby was too bright that morning, sunlight spilling through the glass like it didn't know better than to touch this place. I came with a fresh bag of clothes for Lila, even though I knew she wouldn't wear them, I couldn't. It was a ritual. Something to keep my hands busy when my heart had nothing left to hold on to. And then I saw him. Adrian stood near the reception desk, holding a bouquet of lilies so large it looked like a mockery. He laughed with the nurse, his voice carrying across the hall like a spotlight meant for him alone. Every head seemed to turn as he walked toward the ICU doors, flowers in hand like a conquering hero returning home. Something inside me cracked open. I moved before I realized it, blocking his path. What the hell are you doing? He blinked, feigning innocence. Visiting Lila. Same as you. Not the same, I spat. You're here for a show. His eyebrows lifted, the picture of calm. If it's a show, Ethan, it's because you make it one. Everyone knows she wanted me there. She called me first. Don't blame me for being the one she trusted. People slowed down around us. Nurses, visitors, even a couple of our friends who'd come to check in, they all lingered, caught in the gravity of the scene. Heat flared in my chest. Trusted you? She's my wife. That's my child in her. And you? I stopped myself before my fists could finish the sentence for me. You're nothing but a ghost she should have left behind. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Adrian only smiled, tilting his head, lowering his voice so it cut sharper than a scream. Maybe she didn't want to leave me behind. The words stung worse than any punch. For a heartbeat, I saw doubt flicker in the eyes around me, our friends, the nurses, strangers who didn't know the story but would now carry this version of it in their heads. David's voice broke through, firm from the sidelines. Enough, both of you. But it was too late. The damage was done. Adrian turned to the gathered crowd, setting the lilies down on the desk with theatrical care. I'm not here to fight. I'm here because she matters to me. And in that moment, with everyone watching, he painted himself the martyr and me the jealous husband, unraveling in public. My fists shook at my sides, but I didn't swing. I just stood there, swallowing the fire, because hitting him would have only proved his point. Still, inside, something shifted. I knew then that this war wasn't private anymore. It was public. And the battlefield was mine to reclaim. The hospital room was dark except for the monitor's glow. I sat half asleep in the chair, head heavy against my fist, when my phone buzzed on the armrest. The time glared back at me, 2:47 a.m. I thought it was another group chat message, some late-night gossip about how Adrian was still parading around like a savior. But it wasn't. It was a call. From Lila's brother, Nate. I hesitated before answering, dread already pooling in my stomach. His voice was hushed, raw. Ethan, I didn't know if I should tell you this. But before she collapsed, before they took her in the ambulance. Lila said something. My grip on the phone tightened. What did she say? There was a pause. A long, awful pause. Then, she told Adrian, I was so scared. I didn't know who else to call. The world tilted. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out the steady beeps beside me. Adrian? I whispered. She said his name. Nate's voice broke. I'm sorry, man. I just thought you should know. She trusted him enough to. I ended the call before he could finish. The silence in the room was suffocating. I looked at Lila's still face, pale in the moonlight streaming through the blinds, and for the first time, I didn't see the girl who promised me forever under the stars. I saw someone I couldn't reach. Someone who had already chosen where her heart turned when the fear struck deepest. My throat burned as I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, whispering through clenched teeth. You didn't think of me. Not once. The baby kicked faintly under her hospital gown, as if reminding me why I was still here. My hand hovered, then pressed against her belly, grounding myself. I whispered to the child, not her. I don't care who she trusts. I'm not following her shadow anymore. I'll build this life for you, and for me. Not for her. The words felt heavy but certain, settling into my chest like stone. For the first time since the collapse, I knew where the line was drawn. I wasn't waiting for Lila anymore. Morning light spilled into the hospital room, pale and unforgiving. I hadn't gone home in days, and my body was paying for it, eyes gritty, muscles aching, mind frayed. I sat there scrolling mindlessly, trying to distract myself from the machine's monotone hum, when the notification popped up. Instagram. Adrian's account. My stomach dropped before I even tapped it. It was a photo. Not new, but not old enough to be harmless. Lila and Adrian on some city street, her arm hooked through his, her smile soft and unguarded. A caption in clean white text across the bottom. Some things never change. The comments swarmed beneath it. Wow, I knew they'd always find their way back. She belongs with him. Ethan should have seen this coming. The air rushed out of me like I'd been punched. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred, my thumb hovering over the screen, half ready to shatter the phone against the floor. He knew what he was doing. He knew exactly how to carve me open, how to twist the knife so everyone watching would bleed me out in whispers. I looked at Lila, her real self, lying still under the machines, oblivious to the storm raging outside her body. My chest tightened. Was this what you wanted, Lila? For him to claim you while I sat here holding your place? David messaged me a moment later. Ignore it, man. He's baiting you. Don't give him what he wants. But it was too late. The damage was already done. The world now saw her as his, and me as the outsider clinging to a fantasy. I stood, pacing the room, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. My reflection in the window stared back at me, unkempt, hollow-eyed, beaten. No. Not beaten. I pressed my palm against the glass, breathing hard. This wasn't the end of me. I wouldn't let Adrian write my story. If Lila chose him in her final conscious moments, then fine. Let her soul haunt his name. But this child, this life inside her, that was mine to protect. I clenched my fists, the fury in my chest hardening into something sharper, colder. Resolve. From this moment on, I wasn't fighting for her anymore. I was fighting for myself. The walls of the hospital had started to feel like a cage. Every corner hummed with the same recycled air, the same whispers of pity from nurses, the same sterile rhythm of machines that kept her suspended between here and nowhere. I couldn't breathe in there anymore. So one morning, I walked out. Not just for coffee. Not just for air. I walked out with no destination, my feet carrying me away from the ICU, away from the orbit of her silent body. I ended up at the cemetery. My mother's grave was tucked under a crooked oak, the stone weathered, her name etched faintly into the granite. I crouched, brushing dirt from the letters with my sleeve. Mom, I said, my voice raw, I don't know what I'm doing. She's gone but not gone, and I'm still here, stuck in this limbo. I thought building a family with her would mean something. I thought it would be our dream. My hand trembled as I laid it against the stone. But maybe it was only mine. The wind picked up, scattering brittle leaves across the grass. For a moment, it felt like she was listening. I straightened, wiping at my face. I'll raise this child, Mom. Even if it kills me. I'll give them the life you wanted for me. That's my promise. When I returned to the hospital later that evening, Adrian was waiting outside her room. He leaned against the wall, scrolling his phone, looking too comfortable for someone who didn't belong here. I stopped, staring at him until he noticed. He smirked. Didn't think you'd come back. Why are you here? I asked, voice low. Because she wanted me here, he said. She made her choice before the coma, Ethan. You're just holding on to something that isn't yours anymore. I stepped closer, close enough that our shoulders almost brushed. My voice shook, not from fear but from the effort of keeping it steady. You can keep her memory. Keep your old pictures, your whispers, your pathetic claims. But you don't get this child. You don't get my future. For the first time, his smirk faltered. I walked past him into the room, closing the door behind me with a finality that echoed in my chest. I sat beside Lila, watching the faint rise and fall of her chest, my hand resting over her belly. This is where the chain breaks, I whispered. From now on, it's just me and you, little one. No shadows. No rivals. Just us. And for the first time since the collapse, I felt free. The day I left the hospital for good, the sky was split wide with spring sunlight, too bright for the heaviness I carried. But I walked anyway, past the parking lot, past the rows of cars I'd memorized, past the place where Adrian always loitered like a bad shadow. I didn't look back. I found a small apartment on the other side of town, nothing special. A cracked balcony, peeling paint, a bathroom mirror warped at the edges. But it was mine. No ghosts in the corners, no memories of her smile turning away from me. Just bare walls waiting for something new. I spent the first night on the floor with a mattress still wrapped in plastic. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind kept returning to the hospital bed, to the machines that sang her into limbo. But then I remembered the faint kick under my hand, the tiny heartbeat on the monitor, and it was enough to ground me. The next morning, I set up a crib. It wobbled at first. I'd never been good at assembling things, but when I tightened the last screw, I stood back and stared at it. My chest swelled with something that felt dangerously close to hope. The world outside didn't stop turning. On my phone, Adrian's posts still spread like wildfire, photos of him by her bedside, captions dripping with devotion. Still fighting for you. Always here. Comments piled up, people praising him like some tragic hero. I scrolled, jaw clenched, but then I set the phone down. Because here, in my apartment, none of that mattered. His world was built on appearances. Mine was built on action. I was the one building a life, hammer by hammer, promise by promise, even if she never opened her eyes again. At night, I sat on the balcony, staring at the stars. The same stars she and I used to whisper under. They should have burned me with their memories, but instead they felt different now, like they belonged to me alone. I'll make it work, I whispered to the dark. I'll raise this child to know love without betrayal. That's my horizon now. Not her. Not him. Just us. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't suffocating. For the first time, I saw the shape of a future without her. I hadn't planned on seeing her again. Not like this. Weeks had passed since I left the hospital behind, since I'd carved out my small world of solitude and preparation. I visited less and less, not out of neglect, but because I needed distance to breathe. To heal. But one afternoon, David convinced me to go back. Just to check in, he said. Closure, maybe. Closure. The word sounded like a lie, but I went anyway. The ICU smelled the same, sterile, sharp, too clean to ever feel human. I walked the hallway slowly, each step pressing weight into my chest. When I reached her door, I froze. He was already there. Adrian sat in the chair beside her bed, leaning close as if whispering secrets to a body that couldn't answer. His hand hovered near hers, but not quite touching, like he wanted to appear tender without crossing a line. My breath caught, and for a moment I almost turned around. But then his eyes lifted, locking on mine. Well, he said, standing. Didn't think you had the guts to show your face here again. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice steady. I didn't come for you. He smirked. Of course not. You never do. But somehow, you always end up in my shadow. I stepped closer, my gaze flicking to Lila. She hadn't changed, still pale, still silent, still somewhere far away. My hand tightened on the crib catalog I'd brought along to show the doctor, a reminder that I was planning for the future, not clinging to the past. I'm not here to fight, I said quietly. I came to check on the mother of my child. That's all. For the first time, my words didn't crack. They didn't shake. They landed. Solid. Adrian's smirk faltered. He stepped back slightly, searching for a barb that never came. I looked at Lila one last time, my heart heavy but steady. There was no plea in me anymore, no begging for her return, no illusion of us under the stars. Just acceptance. Take care, I whispered, though I wasn't speaking to her, or him. I was speaking to myself. Then I turned and walked out, leaving Adrian frozen by the bed. For the first time, the distance didn't crush me. It carried me. I was no longer the man waiting for her to wake. I was the man learning to live without her. The hospital corridor echoed with footsteps, the kind that never seemed to end, nurses rushing, families whispering, the sound of life and loss trading places in every room. I hadn't meant to linger after my visit, but fate had other plans. Because Adrian found me there. Ethan. His voice rang out too sharp, too desperate, cutting through the sterile quiet. Heads turned. A nurse frowned at him, but he didn't care. He came barreling down the hall, his face twisted, eyes wild. I kept walking. Stop, he barked. His hand clamped on my shoulder, yanking me back. The contact sent a surge of heat through me, rage barely contained. "What do you want?" I asked, low and even. His voice cracked. "You can't just walk away like this. She needs you. We both need you." I laughed once, bitter, sharp. "She doesn't need me. Not in the way you mean. And you sure as hell don't." He shook his head, jaw tight. "You don't get it. She was mine before she was ever yours. She chose me before all this. You're just," he faltered, like the word was poison, "a placeholder." My fists curled, but I forced myself to stand still, every muscle trembling with restraint. "Maybe that's true. Maybe she did choose you. But guess what? She's not here to choose now. And I'm the one carrying the weight. I'm the one building a life for what's coming." His face crumpled. Desperation leaked through every crack in his mask of confidence. "Don't shut me out, Ethan. Don't take her away from me. She's all I've got left." I stared at him then, really looked. For the first time, I saw not the rival who taunted me online, not the smug boy with all the words, but a man hollowed out by his own longing, drowning in a ghost he couldn't let go. But sympathy didn't save him. Not from me. "You lost her long before the coma," I said, my voice cold as the hospital tiles. "And you're not taking me down with you." I turned and walked away, his voice breaking behind me, calling her name, calling mine, begging the air for something it couldn't give him. For the first time, it wasn't me chasing. It was him. And I wasn't stopping. By the time I left the hospital that night, I knew something had shifted. Not just in me, but in the way the world tilted around me. For months, my life had orbited around her motionless body, tethered by guilt and loyalty. But walking through those sterile halls after Adrian's breakdown, I realized the thread was finally snapping. I didn't belong there anymore. The next morning, I didn't go back. Instead, I stayed in my apartment. I brewed coffee, stared at the wobbling crib, and listened to the faint hum of traffic outside. The city felt alive again, louder, sharper, no longer muffled by the endless beep of monitors. I started filling my days with tasks. Researching baby supplies. Calling doctors. Even reaching out to a support group for single fathers online. Their words poured into me like oxygen. "You don't have to carry it alone. Your child is your new world." For the first time, my phone buzzed with messages that weren't about her. But the tie wasn't fully cut yet. Not until Adrian tried one last time. He showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock, sharp and uneven, and when I opened the door, there he was, eyes bloodshot, clothes rumpled, as if he hadn't slept in days. "You can't just disappear," he said, voice hoarse. "I already have." He tried to push past me, but I blocked the doorway. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he pleaded. "She's still alive. She still needs us." I shook my head. "No, Adrian. She needs peace. And I need to move on." His mouth opened, closed, opened again, but nothing came. For the first time, I saw the truth in him, not the rival who had stolen her loyalty, not the boy who haunted me, but a man clinging to a ghost with bleeding hands. I shut the door. The sound of his fist slamming against it echoed once, twice, then faded into silence. That night, I sat by the crib. My hand rested on the smooth wood, steady and strong. I whispered to the little life growing inside her, words that felt like vows etched into my bones. "We're free now. No more chains. No more ghosts. Just us." For the first time, I didn't look back. The days began to stretch differently. No longer weighed down by hospital visits or Adrian's constant shadow, I found a rhythm, quiet, steady, mine. Morning sunlight spilled across the balcony where I drank my coffee, one hand cradling the growing swell of responsibility in my mind. My nights were filled with planning, budgeting, reading baby books, searching for ways to balance work and fatherhood. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Then came Anna. I met her at the community center where I'd gone to ask about childcare options. She was sorting books in a corner, her laughter spilling like water as she teased one of the volunteers. Something about her presence filled the room without effort. When she caught me staring, she smiled. Not pity, not curiosity, just a smile, warm and direct. "You're new here," she said. "Yeah," I replied, awkwardly shifting the stack of pamphlets in my arms. "Trying to figure some things out." She glanced at the baby supply catalog sticking out of my bag and nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. "Looks like you've already started." It wasn't much, but in her tone I felt something I hadn't in months. Possibility. But shadows don't let go easily. That night, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. The words burned across the screen. She would have wanted us together. Don't fool yourself, Ethan. Adrian. I almost deleted it, but then another message came. And another. Begging, taunting, clawing at me with fragments of the past. His desperation leaked through every word. I put the phone face down, my hand trembling, and looked toward the crib. I thought of Anna's smile, the way it reminded me that not all connections had to cut me open. And I realized something, Adrian wasn't just fighting for her. He was fighting to keep me trapped in his world. But I wasn't his rival anymore. I wasn't her shadow. I was something else now. Someone else. When the night deepened, I whispered again to the life waiting for me, the life that tethered me to the future instead of the past. I'm choosing us. Not him. Not her. Us. For the first time, my heart believed the words. The sky was painted in fire that evening, orange bleeding into purple, clouds drifting like brushstrokes across the horizon. I stood on the balcony, hands resting on the railing, the city humming faintly below. For months, my life had been a loop of grief and desperation, circling the same faces, the same sterile rooms. But tonight, the world felt wider. Open. Inside, the crib was ready now. Assembled, steady, waiting. Tiny clothes folded neatly in drawers, a mobile of stars hanging above, swaying gently with the draft. My hands had built it all, piece by piece, a new constellation drawn into the shape of a home. I thought of her. Of Lila. Her laugh under the stars. The promises we once whispered, the fragile dream that had tethered us. A part of me would always ache for the girl she had been, for the life we almost had. But she wasn't here. And maybe she never would be again. The phone buzzed on the table, his name flashing across the screen one last time. Adrian. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. Because the truth was simple, I'd already chosen. Not the past. Not the rival. Not the echo of a love that had drowned itself in silence. I chose the life waiting in that crib. I chose the man I'd become. I chose the horizon ahead of me. The stars appeared, one by one, faint but steady. I closed my eyes and breathed in the night air, cold and sharp, like it was cutting away what I no longer needed. Somewhere, her soul might still be watching. Maybe longing, maybe angry, maybe broken. But that wasn't my burden anymore. The future was. And for the first time, I was ready.